Welcome to our half hour to health. During this half hour, I would like to be able to give you some new ideas and a new perspective on how we actually gain and maintain our health. So we're going to get right to it because we only have half an hour. So my goal here at the office is to empower full families to strive for amazing health. I want to see you and your children be vibrant and maximize your self-healing potential. And I want to see you not be dependent on drugs, surgeries, hospitals, or doctors, and that includes myself. So before we jump into this, we're going to just kind of go over quickly the state of health of the United States. So the World Health Organization did a study of over 191 healthcare systems in all of the major industrialized countries. And this is how the U.S. ranked. We ranked number 1 in crisis care. And what that means is that there is no better place than the United States to be if you have a major medical emergency. If you're in a car accident, if you have a heart attack, something like that, this is the place to be. But overall, we ranked 37th in overall healthcare. And we had the most expensive healthcare system in the entire world. So in 2005, which I know that was been some time ago, the United States spent $2 trillion on healthcare. And we were ranked 34th in life expectancy. This is out of all of the major industrialized nations. We also ranked 26th in infant mortality. And when we look at the life expectancy and the infant mortality, those are the real numbers that tell us just how healthy we are as a nation. And we're really struggling. And also, with that, 20 to 30% of all patients received contraindicated care. That means they got the wrong care at the wrong time for the wrong condition. They got something that they should have never gotten, a third of the time. So despite us taking 55 times more drugs since the 1960s, we are sicker than ever. And there's no slowing down in sight. Children as young as 5 years of age are being diagnosed with a chronic illness. I have a major issue with this. A major issue. It should not be happening. This is why adult onset diabetes has been renamed to type 2 diabetes, because it's not adult onset anymore. It's happening in 5-year-olds, and it needs to stop. So why is this happening? This is happening actually for completely logical reasons. We are so sick because our bodies are programmed to react in these ways when we are under a huge amount of stress. So if you can Google it later if you would like, but if we just look at the physiology of stress response, this was described in 1936. These are things that happen in our bodies when we are stressed. This is not a disease. It is not pathological. These are normal physiological body responses to stress. And so you can just look through that list. And the things that I have highlighted, there are, for what I definitely knew, medications for all of those things. So just for instance, if you're under stress, our blood pressure or our blood vessels will constrict, and that will increase our blood pressure. So you can take a medicine for that. We will raise our blood glucose levels. And when we are consistently under high stress and high blood glucose levels, hello, diabetes. It increases the triglycerides and the cholesterol levels in our blood. And this is also that our body has the resources to deal with the stress. We will increase our clotting factors. We will obviously increase feelings of stress and fear and anxiety. And we will decrease our short-term memory and our ability to concentrate. So those two things we can see a lot in the growing number of kids with ADHD and concentration and learning troubles. And teen anxiety and suicide is unfortunately all too common. So I think that you kind of get the idea. But what I want you to know here is that it's not the body's response that's the issue. It's the chronically stressful environment that is pathological. So let me show you how this begins. So let's imagine that you are down at the watering hole, all right? So you can imagine that this is your ancestors or even you today, all right? It doesn't really matter. Our genes have not actually changed for tens of thousands of years. So it's not genetics today, but it's just the way that we are. So imagine that you're down at the watering hole, and while you're there, a tiger jumps out at you. What's going to happen when this tiger jumps out at you is you're going to have to make a quick decision. Are you going to fight this lion, or are you going to flight? Are you going to run away from it? Depending on what we need to do or what we're going to do, we need to have a ton of stress hormones. We need to increase our blood glucose so that we have quick sugar to feed our muscles to either run for our lives or fight this beast. We need to increase our blood sugar. The first one was increase your blood pressure. The blood pressure has to increase so you can get the blood out to your muscles. Increase our blood sugar. We need to be able to clot in anticipation that we're probably going to get scratched or bit by this thing. So rather than bleed up, if we increase our clotting factors, then we're not going to bleed out as much. What we don't need is to build strong bones and muscles right now. We're in an acute, life-threatening situation. We're not trying to build a stronger body. Not now. We don't need a strong immune system. There is no need to fight a cold or a flu right now. We do not need to reproduce. My goodness, we do not need interest in reproducing. We do not need to concentrate and learn new material like fractions and whatever they're teaching kids in school these days. We do not need to learn the new information, and we do not need increased feelings. But what we do need is increased feelings of anxiety and fear, so that the next time we're at this watering hole, we remember that a tiger might be lurking by. So these are the things that our body must do when we are faced with a tiger that jumps out at us. And if our body doesn't do all of these things, we just might be its next meal. So, as I had said earlier, this is how our ancestors were programmed tens of thousands of years ago. 10,000 years later, though, we aren't really, going to face the tiger down at the watering hole, but we will experience all of these things. How do we manage our time? How do we manage getting our kids to all of their activities, meeting the deadlines for work, being at the PTA meeting, getting prepped for the school class party? How do we manage all of the stuff in our house? When will we get dinner made? Oh my gosh, is this dinner healthy for our family? What's it doing to us if we eat McDonald's all the time? What is my boss's issue? How am I going to pay the bills this month? How will I do? All of these things stress us out, and they are our lion at the watering hole. So back to this. These things happen to us, even though our boss harping at us or getting our kids to soccer practice on time is not truly a life-threatening situation. but our body still responds in the same exact way. So you have a couple of choices when you are experiencing these things. You can go to your medical doctor, and the only tool that he has for you is a prescription. And you can get a prescription for the majority of things that happen. I mean, just looking through the list quickly, I think there was like 13 different medications you could be on just from those things. And I mean, maybe more. Or you could do something different. But why would you do something different? You have a choice here in determining what kind of paradigm do you live in. Do you believe, is your thought processes more aligned with a sickness and treatment paradigm or a wellness and prevention paradigm? And I'm willing to bet this isn't something that you've ever really thought about before, but I want to give you a really interesting example. So the question that I have here for you is, there's a firefighter and there's a carpenter. And I want to ask you, who's better? Who is better? Is the firefighter better than the carpenter? Or is the carpenter better than the firefighter? And hopefully you're thinking, well, it depends, doesn't it? It depends if your house is on fire. If your house is on fire, then the firefighter is definitely better than the carpenter. If your house is on fire, the carpenter is going to show up with his tools of wood and hammers, and he's not going to do anything for the fire. So in this situation, the firefighter, who has tools that consist of pickaxes and water, they are better. And so if the firefighter shows up and he gets there fast enough and he does a good enough job, then hopefully you have a house that looks kind of like this, and there's something left of it to do something with. And in this situation, if I ask you who's better, the firefighter or the carpenter, you would again look at the tools that each of them have to offer. And in this situation, you would say, well, the carpenter is better because he has hammer and nails and wood and paint. And if he's good enough, he can pretty much restore my house. But ultimately, our desire is to consistently utilize the carpenter and to never actually need the firefighter. And what I want you to really think about in that sense is, if you replace a firefighter with your medical doctor and your carpenter with your wellness family chiropractor, and you ask who's better, medical doctors or chiropractors, the answer is, it depends. And it depends on what you need. So in this situation here, these are, like I said, these are not signs that your body is malfunctioning. These are signs of an impending fire. They aren't signs that you actually need a medical doctor. They are signs that you better get the carpenter to your house and give it some major attention, or the circuits are going to break and then you might have a fire. So I'd like to go over 3 types of stress. You might have heard me say this in the office in terms of traumas, toxins, and thoughts. These are the terrible T's. But these are physical, chemical, and emotional stresses. And so we're going to go through your life cycle and see what this looks like. With each of these stresses, we can both be in physical, chemical, and emotional. We can both be deficient and toxic in those kinds of stresses. So not all stress is bad. Some stress does help us to grow stronger. So like exercise, lifting heavy weights, that helps us to grow stronger muscles. So stress can be good to an extent. It just must be the right way. So in pregnancy, what our common pregnancies are deficient in physical exercise, we're deficient in healthy food, and we are deficient in emotional support. And what we are toxic in is too much sitting around, because you're pregnant, just sit for the next 9 months, right? We are toxic in medications. This shows a picture of vaccination during pregnancy, which is now an extremely common recommendation, despite there being no studies to prove its effectiveness or safety. And the reason that we are all pressured to get these is because we are toxic in emotional stresses. We are scared out of our minds to hurt this baby, and we are told that this is the best way to protect it. That may or may not be true, but that is for another topic, another day. Birth, we are deficient in being able to be up and moving. We are deficient in the chemicals that we need to be up and moving. We're deficient in being able to eat during pregnancy. We are deficient in the support, the emotional support, and that leads to the production of chemicals. And we are toxic in physical stresses, and pregnancy and birth are huge on mom. There's chemical stresses because we are loaded up with medicines throughout birth, and the emotional. This is like a creepy picture to me. Like, you're just on display for everybody to watch, and I think that you don't always necessarily feel very supported in that situation. But these issues don't really just extend to just mom. They affect baby too, with the very moment they are born. So we are deficient in good physical touch. As when we are born, we are deficient in chemicals. So all of the good chemicals that a mom produces, the hormones that a mom produces as she goes through birth. If it's not a vaginal birth, they miss out on probiotics, and the emotional support that a baby gets from being born directly into mom and dad's arms, rather than being whisked away to be immediately examined and that sort of thing. We are toxic in a lot of pulling. A normal vaginal delivery, a baby has up to 90 pounds of pressure placed upon its neck, with pulling and torsion that happens as somebody tries to get the baby out of mom as quickly as possible. We are toxic with chemicals. It's like as soon as baby's born, we've got, stuff to put in their eyes. There's probably antibiotics during labor. There's vitamin K shots and first rounds of vaccinations within 24 hours. And we are toxic with just, being pulled away from mom and not being able to be with mom like we were for the last 9 months. In infancy, we are deficient in being held all the time because we're told that we're spoiling our babies. We are deficient in adequate amounts of food. I understand every baby needs fed. I still say that breast is best, and if we as a society better supported our moms, it would be so much easier for us. I think we are so fortunate that we have other opportunities, so many other ways to make sure that our babies are fed, but it's just not the equivalent. It's just not the equivalent to breastfeeding, and I don't mean that to be shaming anybody. It's just, it kind of just is the way that it is, and it's not because of a mom's individual lack of trying. It's society as a whole and our failure to really support moms and new families. But we are also deficient in just, being able to be close to moms. Moms have to go back to work very quickly. If they're lucky, they get 6 weeks off. And there's just so much about how we raise our children and our babies. We're toxic in being stuck in a bucket seat in a car seat all day. Look at this little guy's head. We are, like I said, formula, but with this as well, this goes into the emotional support. We have contraptions where mom doesn't even have to hold the baby while she gives it a bottle. You can just attach it to their chest. But the next picture just shows this itty bitty baby sleeping all alone, and we're afraid to have babies close to us when they sleep. And I understand why we are afraid, but it goes back to the society. It's a society issue, and we have to really rethink the way that we are raising our babies and our children. Our children are deficient in play. They're deficient in healthy foods. They're deficient in emotional support. Moms and dads are so busy and that we don't get to play with our children and be with them the way that they need us. We're toxic in video games, being babysat by TVs. We're toxic in crappy food, and parents are so stressed out. I speak for myself too. I've got a loaded plate and I yell at my kids more than I ever would like to. And these are some of the things that just happen. In adulthood, we're deficient in play and activity. We're deficient in good, wholesome foods as a family. We are deficient in loving ourselves. We're toxic in being away from our kids. And just, there's so much to all of this. And as I've said repeatedly, the answer is not a pill. What pill, what prescription is going to fix any of those things that I just went over? None of it. None of it can be fixed. The environment in our society is just difficult. So this isn't going to help. What this will help is a crazy acute situation. You're going to need medicines if you are in a horrible car accident. You're going to need medicine if you've become so sick that you have certain things. So I don't want you to think that I'm saying that we never need medicine. There's a time and there's a place. But we need to use it sparingly. There's this amazing quote. Drugs never cure disease. They merely hush the voice of nature's protest and pull down the danger signal she erects along the pathway of transgression. Any poison or drug taken into the system has to be reckoned with later on, even though it palliates symptoms now. Pain may disappear, but the patient is left in a worse condition, though unconscious of it at the time. It's a quote by a medical doctor. And it's one I hope really sticks with you so that you think about the benefits, the risks, and the alternatives and the necessities of your healthcare choices. So the reality is that some stress is unavoidable. When I went through all of the toxicities and deficiencies of everyday life, I mentioned that a lot of it is just because of the way society is. Like I said, I yell at my kids too much. I let them watch too much TV because I work too much. And I'm under way too much stress to pay off my school loans. And there's no way I can avoid it. I just can't avoid it. So for those stresses that we can't avoid, like it would be easy if we could just say, okay, I want to be healthy, so I'm going to make all of those stresses disappear. But it's not possible. So for the times that we can't avoid the physical, the chemical, or the emotional stresses, for that, there's chiropractic. And so what chiropractors do is we look for and we address subluxations. And subluxation is a fancy term that means when stress overwhelms the nervous system and it results in us functioning less optimally. That's what it is. So rather than trying to get rid of all of the stress. What we do as chiropractors is we help your body function better despite the stress. And here's what I want you to know. It is possible to be well adjusted and not well, but it is not possible to be well adjusted. It is not possible to be well and not well adjusted. And so what I mean by that is that you can come in and you could have me check you every single day for subluxation and still not be well. Because you could still go out and live a really crappy lifestyle. But without being well adjusted, no matter how great your lifestyle is, you cannot be well. And so the reason that is because of all of the risk factors that we have in life. So at this point, we have already gone over how your nervous system looks, what's your core score, and how well is your body adapting to stress around you. And we've put together a care plan to help you from that perspective, to help you deal better. But I offer another tool in the office, and it's called a health risk assessment. And what the health risk assessment does is it's a very thorough, in-depth look at how well your nervous system, or how your lifestyle is stressing your body. And from the health risk assessment, we can put together a plan to help you minimize the stress in your body as much as possible, so that you're really going to be able to move forward and be your best in every area. So the chiropractic adjustments are going to help you move better, but we need to help you eat well, move well, and think well as well. So what do we do next? What we need to do next is we need to be committed, and we need to stay committed. If you haven't already, get your family checked. And because you're watching this webinar for the next 2 weeks, I will allow you to get your family checked for absolutely free. You may have already gotten a VIP card in the mail, but because you are watching this, you may get it free. But you're going to have to tell me that you've watched it and you need it, and you're going to get it for free. All right, so this is how I know who's actually watched the webinar. Now, what you do with the information and getting your family scanned is totally up to you. There's no obligation to do anything more with it. But I think that you at least deserve to know what your family scans look like. Other things to do is attend all of our advanced workshops. We have the perfect storm. We have asthma and allergy and ear infections. We have pregnancy workshops. We have all kinds of things. And if there are other topics you want to know about, let me know. And then the final thing for you to do is to tell others. You will actually save lives. As I said, we have a whole nation of really unhealthy people. Kids are suffering and they have no idea why, and they think that their only choice is to continuously take medicines to cover up their symptoms. And I hope from what I've shared with you tonight, you understand that it's not going to help them move forward and be the amazing, vibrant lives that they deserve. So tell others about what you're learning here in the office. Tell them that they can come here and they can get help and live better lives for themselves and their families.